The law in North Carolina would create a legal presumption that this worker, Lecomte, that he was presumed to have held a reasonable fear of imminent death or serious bodily harm if both of the following apply. The person against whom the defensive force is used, Drigger here, was in the process of unlawfully and forcefully entering or had unlawfully and forcefully entered a home, motor vehicle, or workplace, and then a kidnapping scenario. And the person who uses defensive force knew or had reason to believe that the unlawful and forcible entry was occurring or had occurred. Well, certainly this is unlawful. Is it forcible? Did he break something to get in? Generally forcible for purposes of these presumption of reasonable statutes requires that you broke something to get in. The reason they require both unlawful and forceful is because it's possible someone could be an innocent intruder. Now, obviously, we know this guy's not an innocent intruder, but nevertheless, that's how the statute's written. Has to be unlawful and forcible, because there may be an innocent explanation for why someone's unlawfully in your home or in your vehicle. We've probably all had the experience where we walk up to a vehicle that looks just like one we own. We open the door, maybe we even sit in it, and then we're like, oh my gosh, this is not my car. Certainly that's happened to me. So I'm unlawfully present in someone else's car, but without malice. So there's an innocent explanation. It was just a mistake. I happen to own a car that's visually identical. There is no innocent explanation for why somebody would be in your property unlawfully if they broke something to get in, right? That's why they require that forcefully. But normally it requires a breaking. So, for example, one of the innocent intruder scenarios that comes up is a repairman sent to the wrong house. So he's told, listen, these people can't be home. They have to be at work, but they're going to leave their back door open so you can get in and fix their dishwasher while they're at work. And then they give the repairman the wrong address. And he goes to the wrong address, gets there, walks around to the back of the house. Sure enough, the back door is unlocked, opens the door, steps in. He's in the wrong house. He's not there by license. He's not there with permission. He's unlawfully present. But he's not there with malice. And he didn't break anything to get in, right? Breaking something to get in obviously would eliminate any possibility of an innocent intruder. So again, here, of course, we know even now that this guy knows he's not allowed in the truck. He knows it's not his truck. This dude's yelling at him not to get in the truck. He's not an innocent intruder, but nevertheless, the statute requires a forcible entry. Then there's a typical list of exclusions where that legal presumption would not apply. For example, if the person entering the property has license to enter the property, that's clearly not the case here. There's the kidnapping scenario, not a case here. If the person who owns the property, who uses the defensive force, is using that property for any criminal offense that involves the threat or use of physical violence against another individual, that would be an exclusion, doesn't apply here. Or if the defensive force is used against the law enforcement, doesn't apply here. Or if the person who's doing the unlawful and forcible entry has given up, stopped trying to unlawfully and forcibly, or has exited, then the legal presumption of reasonable fear ends. That wouldn't apply here either. And there's also a legal presumption, not just about the defender's state of mind, which is what that legal presumption does. It presumes that the defender had a reasonable fear of death or serious bodily injury, deadly force harm. There's also a presumption under North Carolina law about the intruder's state of mind, that they are presumed to be entering forcibly and unlawfully with the intent to commit an unlawful act involving violence, force or violence. The trouble is this guy didn't break anything to get in, so I don't think the legal presumption would apply. What qualifies as highly defensible property under North Carolina law? Well, a home would. That doesn't apply here. A motor vehicle or a workplace. So motor vehicle would qualify as highly defensible property for purposes of this legal presumption. But again, we don't have a forcible entry. You'd have to argue that just simply opening the door of the vehicle was a forcible entry. I mean, I could make that argument, but it's not like it was locked and he broke the window to get in, right? Which would clearly be forcible. The fact that a car can be used to kill someone is not sufficient for inferring that that's going to happen. You need some evidence. Vehicles are not normally used to kill people, right? They're not deadly weapons by design. Anything can be used to kill people. The shoelace on your shoe could be used to kill someone if you wrap it around their neck. It depends on the manner of use. We're going to differentiate between using a vehicle in its normal manner, stealing a car, which is just larceny of a vehicle, stealing a car with threat of force, that would be a robbery, and actually using a vehicle as a deadly weapon. Now, ultimately, this truck is used as a deadly weapon, but there's no reason to believe that early on when those shots are fired, or even immediately after the car is driven away. That the victim here, he himself does not perceive that the vehicle is about to be used as a deadly weapon. He's just standing there in the street. Could we got a super chat here. Does fighting over the door make it forcible? But are they fighting? They're arguing. So we really come in here. I mean, is the bad guy threatening force against the worker? The worker's pointing a gun at him. I mean, maybe the legal presumption would work. I think it's a stretch. I think if the bad guy had used force on the worker, you could argue that would be a forcible entry. He's not using force on the property, but he's using force to overwhelm the defensive capability of the worker to enter the property. I think that would be a reasonable argument, but I don't see that here. It looks like the dude's just calmly walking up, opening the door, climbing into the truck. I mean, like a lunatic. He's being held at gunpoint when he's doing it. Oh, did I just answer a super chat valued at $1.08? Well, it's a foreign currency. I can't tell. I saw 20. I only work in US dollars. Let's see. Now, when the truck's coming back here, right? We can't see it yet, but everyone's running now. Now the truck is clearly being used as a deadly weapon. Could you use deadly force against the driver now? Well, of course. And that's not what they're doing. It's unlikely to be very effective, by the way, with the truck at speed. Bullets going through a windshield don't go where you think they're going to go. And especially given this guy's shooting performance when he was proximate to the bad guy, and the bad guy was stationary, you can't count on him to hit anything under these circumstances. He doesn't even make the effort. So here, clearly, the truck's being used as a deadly weapon, but that's not when the shots were fired, right? So we would know, we could justify the use of the shots. Now, of course, this victim was killed, ultimately. The bad guy's been charged with murder. The victim's dead, so he doesn't have to worry about any criminal charges for an unlawful use of force, deadly force, discharge of a firearm. His troubles are behind him. But there's another facet here, and it was touched on in the news article too, and that is, folks, if you're going to carry a gun for personal protection, and by the way, unless there is a defense of self, defense of persons, or a defense of highly defensible property argument here, under North Carolina law, you cannot use deadly force in defense of mere personal property. So this shooting, this use of deadly force would be unlawful.